Okay, so I want you to notice that the x-intercepts are always written in the same form. And if we scroll up here, you can see that all the x-intercepts always have an x value, comma 0, the x value, comma 0, and x value, comma 0. So they're always written in the form some x value, comma 0. I'm just going to put a blank for some number, comma 0. So if I'm trying to find an x-intercept, I can always use the fact that the y is always 0 and substitute a 0 in for the y. Now, some students get that confused because the x-intercept, you're actually plugging a 0 in for y, which is not the same letter. But the y-intercepts are always written in the form 0, comma, some number. So if you look up on the previous page, the y-intercept 0, comma 4, 0, comma negative 2, 0, comma negative 1. It's always 0, comma something. So if you're trying to find a y-intercept, you can use the fact that x is always 0 and just substitute a 0 in for x and then solve for the other letter, which is what we're going to do here. So I have 4x plus 3y equals 12. I know my x-intercept is going to be some number, comma 0, and I know my y-intercept is going to be 0, comma some number. So I'm going to use these two facts to my advantage. So when I'm trying to find the x-intercept, I take 4x plus 3y equals 12, and I'm going to substitute a 0 in for y. I do that to find the x-intercept. So 0 times 3 is 0, so I get 4x equals 12. Then I divide both sides by 4, and I get 3. X is equal to 3. So that 3 can go into the ordered pair in the x spot. Because I plugged in 0 for y, there was an x spot available, so when I plugged in x equals 3, it went into the right spot. If I could do the same thing, 4x plus 3y equals 12, but this time I'm plugging a 0 in for x. Notice I still have a y, so I'm going to be solving for y. 4 times 0 is 0. 3y equals 12. Divide both sides by 3. Y equals 4. Now, the minimum number you have to have of points is 2. So if I go to 3, comma 0, and then, wow, look at that. Alright, I fixed it. So 3, comma 0 is right here. 0, comma 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is right there. The minimum number you have is 2 points to create a straight line. 3 would be better, but in this case, because I was asked to get the x and y intercept, this 2 should be plenty. Okay, so let's do this again. I know the x-intercept is going to be some value, comma 0. I know the y-intercept is going to be 0, comma some value, because it's always that way. So on the first one, x-intercept, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2x minus 5y equals 15 and plug 0 in for my y. So that leaves me with 2x minus 5 times 0 is just 0, so I'm going to leave that out, equals 15. Divide both sides by 2, and I get x equals 15 halves. 15 halves is a perfectly good answer, but to graph that, you would probably need a decimal answer, so you can figure that out. 15 divided by 2 is going to get you 7.5. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and just a little tiny bit more, 7 and a half. Okay, so now I'm going to get the y-intercept. So we have 2x, but x is now going to be 0, minus 5y equals 15. 2 times 0 is 0. Now, the negative is associated with the 5, so the negative is still there. Whereas over here, negative 5 times 0 is 0, so I didn't have to put the negative because the negative was applied to the 5, which turned out to be 0. But here, I'm keeping the 5, so we have to keep the negative. A lot of times, students will just drop the negative, and so just be aware of that. 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. So 0, comma, down 3. And then I draw my line. So our next problem is y equals 2x minus 6. Notice this isn't written the same way. No big deal, we're going to approach it exactly the same way. The x-intercept is some number, comma 0. The y-intercept is 0, comma some number. I should probably do that in a different color. Okay, So on the first part, I have, let's see, y equals 2x minus 6. But I'm going to come in and take out the y and replace y with 0. So I have to add 6 to both sides, which leaves me with 2x equals 6. Then divide both sides by 2. X equals 3. So I plug that in my ordered pair, 3, 0, and I can graph that over here. The next one I'm plugging 0 in for x, so I have y equals 2 times x minus 6, but x is 0. Now this one's nice because y is already solved, so I have y equals 0 minus 6, or simply negative 6. So left and right 0, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right here. And then I can draw my line. Don't forget to draw it as long as you can and put arrows in the end. And here's our last problem. Again, you approach it the same way. X comma 0 for the x-intercept, 0 comma some y, which we don't know what it is. Again, I should try a different color on that one. Okay, so for my x-intercept, I have 3 times x minus 5 times y, but y is going to be 0. So we have 3x, negative 5 times 0 is 0. So I don't have to write the negative or the 5 or the 0. Then I divide both sides by 3, and 0 divided by 3 is 0. On our next one, 3x, but x is now 0, minus 5y equals 0. 3 times 0 is 0, so I keep the negative 5y, divide both sides by negative 5, and that gets me y equals 0 divided by anything is 0. So my x-intercept happens to be the origin, and the y-intercept also happens to be the origin. Now that happens if the origin is the x-intercept, it's automatically got to be the y-intercept, which can be a little annoying, because how many points do we need to draw a line? Well, we need at least 2. The x-intercept and the y-intercept here happen to be the same. Now that's not our fault, but we still need to find another point. So let's see, I don't know, we could pick x is equal to 5. So if I pick x is equal to 5, we have 3 times 5 minus 5y equals 0. So that's 15 minus 5y equals 0. Add 5y to both sides. So that's 15 equals 5y. Divide both sides by 5. And I'm getting y equals 3. So at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get 3. And then you had to find another point off the graph. This one could be a little frustrating. If you would have picked anything 1, 2, 3, or 4, you would have got a decimal answer. So there's another way we can deal with some of these problems instead of just trying 1. Oh, that's a fraction, that's annoying. Try 2. Oh, that's another fraction, that's annoying. Try 3. I can see how that could be really annoying. So what we're going to do is in our next lesson next week, we're going to learn something about slope, which will avoid having to hunt and peck for points. Like if you can't seem to find a nice point that isn't a fraction, there's more methods that we will learn next week. But this week we covered graphing lines, we covered picking your own points to find solutions of the graph, and then using those solutions to graph an infinite amount of solutions with just a few points. Then we talked about x and y intercepts and how to find them and how to graph them and how to locate them on the graph. And that's going to conclude the lesson for week 6. So now you can, after you watch this, now you can go back onto the homework and finish up that homework for next week. Good luck.